Thank you for joining us. This is Live with Miami's Community News, and I'm Michael Miller. Today, we're going to be talking about funeral services and cremation services. And our guest today, Crystal Van Orsdel, Marchant, Don Van Orsdel, and our co-host, Michelle. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So often people get really uncomfortable about death and about dying process and about funerals, because typically when you're young, you have no experience with that. And so it is tough for a lot of people to address the issues about our own mortality. And we're going to touch on that a little bit. But what I like to talk about first is, one, how Don wound up being in this business. And you're going to talk a little bit about your family and about a recent celebration for your family in the community. So let's talk about your family right now, before we get to Crystal.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Coral Gables with my dad and my mother and my sisters and my brother. And when I was about 8 years old, I started coming to the funeral home and, would lick stamps and put them on envelopes. And I remember sitting in the chair across from the secretary, my feet wouldn't touch the ground. And I got my first little brown suit back then. And then I started mowing the lawns, and then they would pick me up at the house to help bring a loved one into our care. And then I started sleeping at the funeral home and answering the phones at night and made out-of-town trips.
How old were you then?
I was probably in high school, maybe. I worked all through. As soon as I got to be 16, I went on the payroll, and I've been on the payroll for 56 years. So they paid me minimum wage, $1.65 an hour in 1967. But so my dad didn't spoil me. I grew up working hard. That was wonderful. And then in high school, I went to my dad back in his bed. I said, I'd like to go to mortuary school. And he said, oh, yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. He never pushed me. He never said, we're counting on you. You're the next generation. He never did that.
So, Michelle, I know you have some questions for Crystal, so go ahead. You're on.
So Crystal, hearing your father's journey to the family business, how does your stories parallel, or do they at all?
It's kind of similar. My dad would always bring me, especially in the summers, to the funeral home, and he would always tell me to make myself useful if I was going to be there, even if I was a little small child. Mm-hmm. So now they don't do it as much, but they used to do a lot of 24-hour reposes, and so they would make cafecito, and I would have to pass it around to people, open the door, just be of service in every way that I could. As I got older, technology started coming into the industry, and my dad asked me around when I was 14 or 15 years old if I could make video tributes, which is like a slideshow of pictures of the person's life, since from when they're little to when they're old. And I made one for a family. We played it during the service, and I sat in the back and watched their reactions, and they were crying, they were laughing, and it just felt so meaningful to me. So I just started coming every day after school and making videos for families to honor their lives, and it just felt something very special to me.
And Crystal, that must have been heartwarming and fulfilling when you saw the work you did to honor the deceased and honor the family. It must have been very fulfilling for you.
It was, and I think that was my defining moment, and I kept doing it. And especially since a lot of times the people that go to a funeral may not necessarily have known the decedent, right? They might have known the family members. So they get to also see the pictures and see the life and take part of that as well. So it's something very special. And then obviously it got to so many videos. Everybody wanted a video. So then I had to train other people to do it, and it got bigger and bigger.
That's wonderful. So I know that Michelle has questions for Dad over here. Go for it.
Okay.
I mentioned this before the show about how much history I know about Van Orsdel Funeral Home and Cremation Services already, how you're really made your mark in the Miami community. How do you deal with meeting so many different people and different backgrounds and all the communities and cultures we have here? How do you navigate the relationships and stuff?
Yeah, every day I get up, it's a different situation, and we deal with all types of families, and of course death affects everybody. and I'm the one that handles anything special or Crystal does, because most families are very easygoing and some families are high maintenance, and you need to have a special touch. And, if a family might be upset because of the death, we try to, counsel with them. And the big thing I do is listen to them and reassure them that we're going to take care of everything. They don't have to worry about anything, because people do get on the defensive, and they have a lot of preconceived notions of what funeral homes are like. And we have people that speak multiple different languages at the funeral home. I have a Haitian funeral director that speaks Creole and French. And we've learned, because Miami is super international.
Yes.
We deal with families from all over the world. We just sent a loved one yesterday to the Congo. And tomorrow we're sending a loved one to the Dominican Republic, and one just arrived from Peru. So we're extremely international, and we try to be their professional guide to how they can repatriate their loved one or handle everything here in Miami.
Then tell us the influence that your grandfather had on you.
My grandfather, actually, believe it or not, I never got to meet him, because he died in 1939. My grandfather had a bank in Iowa, saw the Depression coming, sold the bank. They ended up in Miami. They bought a funeral home in downtown Miami, 929 Northeast 2nd Avenue in 1924. And my grandfather passed away in 1939, 2 years after we built the Midtown Chapel. And then in 1939, my father put a second story on the Midtown Chapel, which ended up being the first mortuary ever built in Miami. And then my father was the real legendary person. He became a city of Miami commissioner. He was nationally known in the funeral profession because he didn't go with the trends. He was an innovator. He did things he was one of the first funeral homes in America to have white cars, one of the first ones to offer rental caskets for cremation. And also he advertised the cost of funerals, and the state of Florida took him to court, and he won the case.
Wow. So when you look at pictures of your father with his father, your grandfather, what's that like for you? And here's grandpa a long time ago, and here's you. What does that look like for you?
Well, it's it's an awesome thing to look at that and see the history of what we're doing of helping families, and that I'm the third generation. It's a big responsibility, big shoes to fill, because my dad was just an amazing person.
So, Crystal, the Van Orsdel family just had a recent celebration. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was very special. We had a lot of people join us from the community. Even families that we've served wanted to be there, and we just wanted to just celebrate the fact that we're blessed to be able to do this for 100 years, because not many families get to do this. And so it was very special. I spoke, my father spoke, a few other people shared some testimonies. My son and daughter were there joining us, and it was just a very special moment in the community.
I was fortunate to be there because I also in the family business, and to see all those photographs that were up there, and to see you and your mom, your other sisters, and were there some other kids there too?
Yeah, my children.
Yeah, and to see them there, and your children, they already have it. You can see that,
Yes.
And they have the posture that you have, and I can see they're very proud of what you've built. And so we look at them, young kids, and they're going to carry that with them for a long time. So let's talk a couple things. What sets you aside the services that you provide then from some other funeral homes?
I think it's the personal touch. It's the family touch. We're not a corporation. My grandfather always told my dad, and he would tell me, worry about the families and the rest will take care of itself. The business will take care of itself. So we always put families first, their interests first, not quotas and things like that. And I think, I'm always looking for new innovative ways to find meaningful ways for families to honor the lives of their loved ones. So anything new, innovative, I'm there because I want to be able to offer that to families, So we really go the extra mile to personalize services.
And Don, Michelle touched on Miami-Dade County is multicultural and lots of different religions. How do you be sensitive to that and make sure as best you can that you serve the needs of your clients?
Well, we have to, make sure that we honor exactly what their wishes are, and every religion we need to be knowledgeable about what they want. The other day we had the Shever Kadisha come in for a Jewish family, And, you know, we have families that want to dress their loved one, and we want to be flexible and offer what they, you know, what they need in a sensitive and caring way. And I'm a perfectionist. It has to be perfect, and we want to make sure every life is unique, and every funeral needs to be unique. And like Crystal said, we want to do innovative things and help them celebrate the lives of their loved ones.
Michelle,
Sorry, I was going to also add something on, like the Hindu culture.
Yes.
They like to carry the casket all the way to the crematory and be the ones to push the button. And at our Midtown location, we're set up for that. So we do a lot of Hindu services, a lot of different cultures and religions. Like my dad said, a lot of people think that they have to go to a Jewish funeral home, but we know how to do all those services, and we're sensitive to all that.
you have some questions, I can see.
Nice. Honestly, I'm just I just resonate a lot with that, with the passing of people is such an intimate thing, and I'm so happy to hear that you guys, you know, that's like a primary focus of you guys, to understand that it's an intimate moment in a person's life, even with the family, and even in a death of a person's life, that's still their, you know, dignity. So it's honestly great. Do you have like kind of like any sort of, I don't know, counseling maybe? I don't know what the word I'm thinking about, but when you have discussions with the families, is it you speaking to them, or is it like a different type of person that understands, you know?
So for the funeral arrangements, we have a funeral director that is helping the family, giving them all the options, understanding what they want, what their culture, what their religion and traditions are. But we also have pre-planning, and I really think that that's super important. I know that a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but it is an important talk to have, because you want to make sure that your children, your family members are in sync with what your wishes and desires are, because the funeral is actually for the living. I know a lot of people think it's for the decedent, but it's for the living. So we get a lot of families that come in, their mother or father passed away unexpectedly, and the brothers and sisters are disagreeing as to whether their mom wanted cremation or burial or a service or not. So it's super important to have that talk. And you can do that amongst yourselves, and then meet with one of our pre-planning counselors and just get all the options and lay it out so that the family can be involved in the decision making.
It's perfect.
When my father was in a funeral home, a nursing home, I said to my brother, listen, one day we're going to get a phone call, all right? This is what we're going to do. Okay, perfect. An interesting thing happened. At Monday, I was at Casa Cuba. It was the first day that I had worn a tie in 3 years. And I don't know why. I'm there, get ready for a sales meeting, 8 o'clock, get a phone call. Mr. Miller, Sergeant informed me your father died, called Grant. I said, Grant, go ahead, do what we plan. I'm gonna go do the meeting at 9 o'clock, all right? And then I'll meet you afterwards. And because it was already planned out, it was just so much simpler. We didn't have to wonder what we were gonna do, and it was a perfect plan. And I don't know why I wore a tie that day, but you know, I think it was sort of this messaging, and I became acutely aware of that. If something special was going to happen, I didn't know it was that, and so I think that's very important. People have that all planned out so the children and the spouse don't have to wonder about that. But if there is an untimely death, and people haven't made arrangements and they want to have a burial site, can you help them select that?
Yes, we can still do that. Definitely. Everything can be arranged at need. That's what our funeral directors are, trained and went to school for. It's easier, obviously, like we said, ahead of time, even for financial reasons, but it all can be done at need when needed.
Okay. And I know that you all are involved in a lot of community activities. So, Don, why don't you tell us about some of those things that you're involved with?
Well, I've been in the Rotary Club of Miami for 48 years, and we're in the Coral Gables Chamber, Chamber South, Palmetto Bay Business, Cutler Bay Business, Pinecrest Business, just a lot of different clubs and organizations. We also are the chosen funeral home for Live Like Bella, and if a child dies of cancer, our services are not, there's no charge for them, only the merchandise. And we work with a lot of different organizations. Sunrise Community, we work with them, do a lot of pre-planning. The guardianship program in Miami-Dade County, MacTown. We've also worked with the Miami Rescue Mission, Salvation Army, and we've always tried to offer services for people that couldn't afford the regular costs.
And Crystal, that must be impressive when you listen to
Yes,
this list that your family put together and wonder what to do. Here's about 30 of them that you can do it, and congratulations on remembering them.
I'm trying to keep up.
Congratulations to be able to do that. And we see that more and more people are being cremated. And I know that Michelle was going to ask that, but it was on the tip of my tongue. So let's talk a little bit about the changing from mostly in the ground to mostly being cremated.
So, I mean, it's about 70% cremation here in Miami.
About 70, and when I was young, it was about 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's changed that much.
Statistics show that it's actually not, people think it's a cost thing, but it's actually a preference thing. But I do think cost is involved. There's a lot more cost involved in buying a cemetery property for burial, the vault, the marker, the casket. So a lot of people are opting towards cremation, especially because there's a lot of options with cremation, a lot of things you could do with the cremated remains. And so I think a lot of people are heading towards that.
And if people decide ahead of time how they want it, they could also decide, hey, this is what I would like to have happen.
Yes.
Right. I've been fortunate to be on some of those, let's put it in the ocean stuff.
Yes.
Yes.
Friends called me up, Michael, let's go out on the boat. I'm going to put somebody's remains out there. Okay, is that what your mom wanted? Perfect, let's go. So, again, you're involved with a lot of local chambers of commerce and a lot of business and civic organizations. What sort of reception have you seen change as from looking at you in the funeral business today as compared to 25 years ago? Do people look at you differently today than before?
I think maybe a little bit differently. The funeral profession's always been a well-respected profession in each community. People have seen a lot of things, a lot of things on news. If anything goes wrong in the death care industry, it's always on the news. So people are concerned, and that's why it's really good that we have our own crematories right in our downtown funeral home, because people want to go over there and make sure it's their loved one placed in the crematory. We have an air-conditioned viewing room. They can look through the glass and see. And we use a stainless steel disc to put in with the remains, because a lot of people, and it stays with the remains, and the number matches the certificate at the end, because a lot of people are wondering, well, am I going to get my loved one's remains back? Because they've seen it on the news.
Do they vocalize that?
Yes.
Yes.
We get a lot of questions.
Yes.
About that. They even ask us if how many people are we cremating at the same time, and that is a state law that you can only cremate one person at a time, and we cannot use the crematory for pets or anything else other than a human.
Nothing.
You're taking my breath away.
Yeah. But we get these questions, and so
yeah, I'm sure it's like, I hadn't thought about that. So Michelle's over there going, oh, holy moly.
It's so much of the process that I personally don't know. So the crematory is only housed at the Midtown location.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
and how many locations do you guys have?
we have 3 locations, and then our crematories are at our Midtown location, owned and operated by us. A lot of funeral homes won't tell you this, but they outsource it to either other companies or other areas, like in a warehouse area. And so we have control of the entire process.
So that building downtown's been there for like a zillion years, right? 50
Yes.
years, 70, whatever it is. So it's a funeral home that also provides that service on site.
Right. Right.
And we have all these high rises all around us,
Yes.
and we're there.
So you can go, the service can be there, and then instead of going to a cemetery, you would go to the other room.
Yes.
Yeah, to the crematory,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we have a chapel.
She says it with such ease.
Yeah.
Well, then you can, some people then take the cremated remains to the crematory. To the cemetery to bury or to put in a niche. And we can even have a procession with cremated remains in a hearse, just like a funeral.
Pretty nifty.
Yeah.
So we know that space at funeral at cemeteries seems to be, people are starting to question that. And there are a lot of people though that say, I don't want it to go over here. I'm going to take it. I don't want to put it out. That's the whole process for the bereaved to be able to say, okay, I don't need a place to go to grieve. I got it in here. So when people ask you that process, how do you move them so they can make their own decision, and how do you help direct them to themselves rather than you making a decision for them, which I know that you don't do. So how do you do that?
Well, we give them all the options. We like to explain everything in detail. And I'm telling them, you're going to make all the decisions, but we want to give you all the options so you can make an intelligent choice for your loved one.
And we know that grief is expressed lots of different ways: anger, frustration, crying lots of times, and probably a whole bunch of other stuff. So it's a very sensitive time for them, and make sure that you're there for them. When you counsel them, is it typically one person or two? Is it the whole family that goes in, or do they select a person? Mom, you decide what to do.
I think it depends on the situation and the death. Sometimes if it's a very unexpected death, sometimes the immediate next of kin can't deal with it too much. Either they send somebody in, or they bring family, or it just depends on the family. But when we get a large group of people in the room, we're happy to answer everybody's questions. And I mean, then the decisions become a little bit like, too many people involved, but that's what we're there for, whatever's best for them. So.
And we know that the state of Florida, as well as other businesses, have been hacked. And if people are trying to get a death certificate or birth certificate, some other things, there's some problems. So why don't you tell us about that, Crystal?
Yes. So the death certificate system, EDRS, was hacked. And so we've been down since about June 27th. And this is in effect, is affecting all funeral homes in the state of Florida. So things are taking a lot longer. We are on a manual system. We can still email things. We can email it to the doctor, then email it to the bureau, but all these things that were automated before are not. So you can imagine it's adding time to the process. It's taking about a week more. Some funeral homes have actually paused cremation because they don't know the exact process, because there's a lot of entities involved in what we do. The doctor, the funeral home, the medical examiner's office for cremation approval. So there's been a lot of different processes changed in the past couple weeks, because they're just trying to keep up. So, but we are still cremating according to the laws, the state laws, getting cremation approvals, and we're just pushing through as best as we can. Something that is very important for families to know, though, is that if you lost a loved one on or around June 27th and forward, it's important to ask the funeral home if they have notified Social Security, because this is something that was happening through the EDRS system, and now it's not. Now you have to actually get a statement of death by funeral director form, fax it, mail it, or take it in person. So I think it's important that, if you did have a loss of a loved one, you double check with the funeral home. Some funeral homes are doing it, some funeral homes are not.
Okay. Next subject. On your Coral Gables funeral home, when was that built?
1953.
Oh my goodness gracious. That was before almost all of us.
The picture of the first picture of the Gables Chapel, and the windows are open, so there was no air conditioning.
Right. So downtown chapel was built when?
1937. That was the third location.
Rachel, that was the third location?
Yeah, the 929
24.
Northeast 2nd Avenue was first. 129 Northeast 79th Street, Little River was second. That was third. But it was the first mortuary ever built in Miami.
Amazing. And then you have Kendall.
Kendall, 112th and Kendall. Yeah, we have 3 strategic locations right across the county.
Okay, and I think can we put up their website address so if people want more information? They go. We have it right up there, vanorsdale.com. They can find everything that's on there.
Yes,
right?
I
all
try
the
to
services
make it.
and all the wonderful faces, the people. I was fortunate to meet some of them, and I was at one service not too long ago in Kendall, and then I wound up in the Coral Gables one, and it was nice to. Oh yeah, I remember this guy. I like this. Yeah, I remember that. So Rachel, we got 2 minutes left. Tell us ask us whatever your last question is.
I'm wondering what is a ceremony or a service that was you're very proud of, like maybe your most proud body of work?
I mean, there's just so many. There's so many. It's just so fulfilling to see, like, when I give everybody the options, there's so many things you can do to honor your loved one that don't necessarily cost, you know, extra. We just give them ideas so that when they're having their service, like, for example, we did a service for this lady that she just loved orchids. So the family brought orchids all over the funeral home. There must have been like 100 orchids. Her favorite color was green, and we had velvet green couches in the other room, and we switched the couches for her from the blue to the green. So we just like did everything possible to make it personal. The granddaughters, we set up a keyboard and piano for them to sing, and you know, just everything we could do to make it special and personalized. And I think those are the most memorable ceremonies.
Yes, I'm sure the family was like really, you're happy with that. For her favorite color to be the couches and the whole orchids.
And we have 2 minutes left. Don, I know you've been doing this for a long time, and I know you provided services for some very famous families in Miami-Dade County. Can you share some of those families?
Yes, during COVID, we handled Don Shula, and of course, it couldn't be a public service so we planned it all out, and I personally went to their house, made all the arrangements, and that's where he passed away, and we were involved. Everything went just perfect. The family was very pleased. Janet Reno was at Miami-Dade County South, Miami-Dade College South, and that was a lot of planning, a lot of work with that. And Chief Hammerschmidt, Chief of Police of Coral Gables, 600 police officers at the Adrian Arch Center. We handled Joe DiMaggio, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. Right now we're handling Merritt Steerheim. We just were honored to serve Donald Sutherland.
So people trust you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about those people, they're for us, very famous people, very well known. So my congratulations on providing that service where they can trust you year after year. We're going to wrap it up. Congratulations on your 100th anniversary.
Thank you, Mike.
Right? And we know that next generation is waiting for you guys to be inside. So again, Crystal, thank you very much. Don, appreciate it. Michelle, nice to see you again.
Thank you guys.
And let's look right in the camera, the red camera right over there. Folks, thank you for joining us. Remember, take care of yourselves and your family. Have a great day.
Hey.